Pastor Danny Davis here. It's so good to be with you today. I'm going to be talking to you about something very, very interesting today. I want to talk to you about an actual vision I received from the Lord in July of 1978. I was a young preacher, just 23 years of age. Now, as crazy as this sounds, I had something happen when I was 23 years old. I was preaching a fabulous revival meeting in Saginaw, Michigan. I returned to my little apartment in East Lansing, Michigan, and Jesus came in my room. And for 3.5 hours, he removed my spirit out of my body and gave me a vision of the future of America. And I put it in book form, and I want to let you know that if you look there in the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a place where a link you can click on if you'd like to have a digital copy of this book. There's also an 800 number you can call, and if you'd like to get a copy of my book digitally, called The Vision. And I want to take a little while today and talk to you about what happened to me in July of 1978. First of all, I want you to know that Jesus didn't come visit me because I was such a good preacher. In fact, even though I was in a fabulous revival, I was running close to 1,000 people a night in my revival meeting, I had decided that would be my last revival, and I was going to quit preaching after that revival. I was discouraged. People had said things to me, things had been happening to me, and I just decided I don't want to preach anymore. And so I went home after service in July of 1978. I fell across my bed. I was wearing my suit still. I was too tired to even take my suit off. I just kicked my shoes off and fell across the bed. Jesus came in my room in the wee hours of the morning and woke me up so that I would know that I was receiving a vision from him. He physically woke me up to where I was not sleeping. I knew that I was having a visitation from the Lord. Right after the Lord woke me up, he took my spirit out of my body and lifted me up above the United States of America. I actually felt my spirit rise up above my body. I looked down upon my body laying there in the bed. I still had my suit on. My pant leg was pulled up almost to my knee, and the back flap of my suit was up near my shoulder. I was laying there on the bed as my spirit rose above my body, and I felt my spirit go right through the roof of the apartment building that I was living in at the time. I was lifted up above the United States of America. I was lifted up in the air, higher and higher, until I was above the United States of America. When I got up above the United States, storm clouds began to roll in. It reminded me of almost of the way the sky looked when I was in a tornado one time. The sky became very ominous. The Lord stood me up on my feet in the middle of the air and allowed me to look across the United States of America. I was looking from the state of Michigan, East Lansing, Michigan, where I lived all the way across the United States toward the West Coast. And for 3.5 hours, Jesus carried me back and forth across the United States of America and showed me future events. Now, this was in July of 1978 when I was 23 years old. I want to remind you of a scripture. The Bible says, in the last days, your old men will dream dreams and your young men will see visions. I had a vision of the future of America. Now, here's the crazy thing about it. For decades, I never felt led to say much about my vision. I never really preached very much on it, nor did I tell that many people about it, because it just didn't, there wasn't a prompting in my spirit to talk about it. But back a number of years ago, it was about the time that Donald Trump became the 45th President of the United States of America. He'd been in office about 6 weeks. The Lord spoke to me to get alone and sit down and write the vision down, to write a book. I called it The Vision, and to talk about all of the things that I saw in my vision of the end of time way back in July of 1978. Now, it's been very, very strongly impressed upon my heart that the time has arisen for me to begin to get the word out concerning my end time vision. Every time I turn the news on, I see young people chanting infantata and talking about destroying Israel, or I see statues being pulled to the ground, or public statues of our history being defaced, or I see people rioting in the streets. Something rises up in my spirit, and the Lord keeps saying, Danny Davis, it's time for you to tell the world about the vision I gave you in July of 1978. Now, if you think I'm selling something today, I want to let you know before I say anything else, I am not. If you look on the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a link that you can click on and digitally contact us, or an 800 number that you can call. And if you'll give me the pertinent information, I'm going to send you a copy of my book, The Vision, digitally, free of charge. There's no charge for it. I just want to get the word out to you concerning things God has showed me about the future of the United States of America. Now, this book that I wrote, there was a feeding frenzy on it when it first came out. People wanted it everywhere I went because so many people are aware of the fact we're coming down to the last days and the world is getting worse and worse. And I talk about the vision in chapter 1 and chapter 2 of the book. I talk about Jesus actually, as I stood above the United States of America, suspended in the air, the Lord came up from behind me. And as he approached me, I was not allowed to turn my head to see him. I couldn't do anything but look straight ahead throughout the vision. It was like my face was transfixed looking one direction. But as he walked up from behind me, there were storm clouds all around. I was standing in the middle of the air above the United States of America. But the closer he got, the brighter the atmosphere became. And finally, Jesus stood right beside me in my vision of the end of time. And he spoke. His voice sounded like rolling thunder. And when he spoke to me, I could look out of my peripheral vision, and the brightness was all around me. And he said, "Son of man, behold." And when he spoke, it sounded like rolling thunder. And when he said, "Behold," he threw his hand out, and I could see out of my peripheral vision the hand of Christ. And there was a hole right here in the wrist. Now, I always thought when I was younger that they put the hole in Jesus' hand when they put him on the cross. Many pictures you see of Jesus on the cross, you see the nails going through his hand. But I saw his hand in my vision of the end of time, and the hole was right there in his wrist. You could see the hole. And when he said, "Son of man, behold," he threw his hand out, and the storm clouds parted, and I was looking east to west from the state of Michigan across the United States of America, and I was seeing the United States almost like being in an airplane. I was up above the United States, but I could see from one end of the country to the other. Now, for 3.5 hours, Jesus carried me back and forth across the United States of America and showed me future events concerning this nation. You know, when you read this book, and you realize that the things that I talk about in this book were given to me in July of 1978, you're going to realize just how prophetic this book is, because many things I saw way back in July of 1978, over 40 years ago, they're only now happening. And I didn't feel really strongly impressed until about 7 or 8 years ago to talk about my vision of the end of time. The Lord actually spoke to me and said, "Son, it's time to begin to write the vision down and share it with people." So in this book, I share my vision of the end of time, and I talk to you about future events that are coming upon this nation. Now, you know, I read just yesterday that 1 out of 27 people in the United States of America right now, as I'm making this video talking to you, or making this broadcast talking to you about my vision of the end of time, 1 out of 27 people in America, they're actually skipping meals right now so they have enough money to make it until the end of the month. Many people are beginning to feel the pressure of a recession upon their lives. Young people can't buy houses anymore. They can't afford the monthly price of a house. And I'm sorry to tell you, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse before Jesus returns, because I saw all of these things in my vision of the end of time. The Lord showed me shortages that would take place in the United States. In the very beginnings of my vision, I was allowed to see things that were going to come upon this country and come upon the earth. And one of the things that I saw was food shortages and people becoming panicked because they couldn't just go to the grocery store and buy things like they used to be able to. And this was just one of many things that I talk about in my vision of the end of time. And not only did I see food shortages, I saw crop shortages, and the agriculture begin to fail in the breadbasket of America. Oh, I could go on and tell you 100 things that I talk about in this book, but I want to say this again. The reason I have that link on the bottom of the screen is not because I'm trying to get a thin dime from you. I'm trying to give you my vision in digital form. I want to give you this book. Now, I've taken this book around America as I've preached in auditoriums around America, and people have gone to the book stand. They've gladly spent $20 just to get a copy of the book and donated to our ministry because they wanted to read about the vision. But I feel like I need to get this out in a much larger way. The warnings concerning the future of our country and the future of our nation and the future of the world. And so I'm offering the book free of charge to you. You can get it by calling the 800 number you see there in the bottom of the screen and just telling us, how to get the book to you in digital form, or you can click on the link and tell us how to get the book to you in digital form, and we'll get it out to you right away. And I promise you, when you read this book, if you believe in the prophetic, as you read this book, many things are going to be confirmed to your heart. Now, all of my vision that lasted for 3.5 hours pertained to the United States of America. But there was one part of my vision when Jesus actually took me around the world, and I was hovering over a dry riverbed, and I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, what am I looking at? And the Lord said, that's the Euphrates River. Now, this was way back in 1978 that I saw this, and the river had dried up, and I began to look down upon that riverbed, and translucent frogs began to come up out of that riverbed. You could look right through them. I guess the best way to describe it to you, if you took a sandwich bag and filled it full of water and you looked through that sandwich bag, that's what these frogs looked like. You could look right through them. They looked fluid inside, but they were coming up out of that riverbed, and they were leaping out of that riverbed, the Euphrates River, and I saw them moving all over the earth, and the Lord was allowing me in the Spirit to see these frogs that were coming up out of the earth. And I said, Lord, what are these frogs? And the Lord said, son, those are demon spirits, and they've been held in reserve for the last days. And I could see them jumping into men's hearts, people that were political leaders and celebrities that people followed in mass, and even sports figures and people that had influence. These frogs were jumping into their heart. They were evil demon spirits that were entering into people. And as those frogs began to enter into more and more people, everybody began to say the same thing. They began to all kind of come into agreement in the evil things that they were saying. And the Lord showed me that these demon spirits that were held in reserve below the Euphrates River and were being released in the last days, they were all a part of the end-time prophetic plan of God, as there's one last demonic attack upon the world to destroy, to steal, kill, and destroy. After all, you have to remember, did Jesus tell us the devil comes to do? Well, he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And these demonic spirits, they were influencing people that were rulers over countries and people that were political leaders and celebrities. They're influencing them to all agree and say the same thing. And I don't think I have to tell you, now this is over 40 years ago that God gave me this vision, but I don't think I have to tell you that that's just exactly what's happening in the world right now. A lot of times people are talking about globalism these days, and why are they letting millions of people into the United States of America, even as I speak to you today? Why are the borders open? Well, I think there are people today that don't want America to be great anymore. They want to fill this country full of people, and even if it breaks the country financially, they want to bring America to its knees because there are people with a globalist agenda. And I want to talk to you about something for just a moment. I don't think I even talk about it in the book, but how does the Antichrist come to power? Think about this for a moment. How does the Antichrist come to power? Well, the Antichrist comes to power because there's confusion throughout the earth, there's trouble throughout the earth, and this man who proclaims himself a man of peace, he comes to power by offering solutions. Well, who will the Antichrist be? Well, he'll be a human being that's got Satan himself inside of him. He'll come offering solutions, and he'll want to unify the whole world. That's what the globalists want. They just want America to be a part of a bigger picture where the whole world is all on the same page and on the same agenda. Well, whether you realize it or not, that's setting the stage for the Antichrist to take power. And I saw many of these things in my vision. Now, something I think is interesting, I want to just kind of interject this. I'm going off track a little bit here. But 40 some years ago, when I was over the Euphrates River and I saw a dry riverbed, well, there was no dry riverbed in the Euphrates 40 years ago, 40 some years ago. The Euphrates River was a thriving river 40 some years ago. The water was there, but since I had this vision over 4 decades ago, there's a section of the Euphrates River that is dried up, just like I saw in my vision. I'm going to really jump ahead in my vision of the end of time and tell you something I saw toward the end of my vision. I'm kind of bouncing around as I talk to you today about my prophetic vision of the end of time. In the end of my vision, I saw powerful warships that were on the west coast of America. They had swept in and they were out in the waters on the west coast of America. At this point in time, America was all but destroyed. And I'm jumping forward, way forward in my vision, and it's all written in the end in this book. And what I'm talking about is toward the end of the book, I saw warships that were on the west coast of America. America was all but decimated already. And they had come to finish off the United States of America. And I asked the Lord, I said, where are these battleships coming from? And the Lord spoke to me and said, they're coming from China. The Lord actually told me that in my vision of the end of time. Now here's something else that's uncanny, because I recorded these things 40 some years ago. I told people that I did talk to about this, that I saw Chinese warships that toward the end of America, before America was totally decimated and destroyed, they had come to finish this country off, and they were lined up out in the ocean on the west coast of America. And people laughed at me back then, way back in the 70s and early 80s, that I did talk to about this. They said, China doesn't have any ships. China's not got a navy. They don't have anything like that. People used to mock me, but here we are 40 some years later, and China's, their battleships are about to surpass the United States Navy, and China's become very powerful. They weren't powerful back then when I had my vision of the end of time. And when I would talk to people about China coming against the United States of America to destroy America back 40 some years ago, they almost chuckled at me and as though I had lost my mind. But I was seeing something prophetic, and I want you to understand something else before you read this book. In my vision of the end of time, I would find myself taken different places, not at the speed of light, almost at the speed of thought. I'd be in one place in the United States of America, then I'd be in another. At one point, I was all the way around the world, hovering over the river Euphrates. It was almost at the speed of thought that God would take me from one place to another and show me future events that would come upon this great nation. Why? Because America has rebelled against God. And I remember Billy Graham preaching a sermon one time when I was a young boy, and he said, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." You know, America has reached a place in its history where it doesn't honor God like it once did. You know, this country was built on honoring God. And if you read the Constitution of the United States of America, you'll sense God all the way through the Constitution. But we're in a time now when young people, it almost seems as though the college campuses have poisoned their minds until they're almost God haters. And when you turn the news on these days and you see college students revolting on campuses, and they're defacing statues of our history, and they're spray painting statues or taking ropes and trying to pull statues down. There's actually a scripture I taught on this one time where God said, don't touch the ancient landmarks. God actually pronounced a curse on people that would remove the ancient landmarks. And what are the ancient landmarks in the United States of America? Well, there are statues of our history, the good, the bad, and the ugly. These statues that we have throughout our United States of America right now. Why are people wanting to destroy and deface these statues and change the names of schools and change the names of military bases and to wipe out our history? Well, I'm going to tell you what I believe about it, and it ties right in with my vision of the end of time. It's because it's a demonic spirit. There's a demonic spirit that is motivating people as America is being pushed forward into end time destruction. End time destruction. I can't think of a better word to use because I saw America decimated in my vision of the end of time. None of the things that you take for granted right now were available anymore. Even halfway through my vision, I watched as personal liberties were lost one at a time, and things that we take for granted. When you go to a grocery store, or when the things that we just, as Americans, we feel like they're normal things, they're a part of our life. I saw all of these things being destroyed in my vision of the end of time. I want to stop for a moment once again and tell you I have a motive for talking about my vision of the end of time today. I know there's somebody, maybe you've just tuned in, you think, oh, he's selling his book. No, I'm not. I'm giving it away. You see a link on the bottom of the screen there, or an 800 number. If you'll contact us, I want to give you a digital copy of my book, The Vision. I want you to read it. That's my reason for offering it to you. I want you to see what God showed a 23-year-old preacher way back in July of 1978, when God removed my spirit out of my body and took me above America and carried me back and forth for 3.5 hours and showed me the future of America. There's a young man that I used to be his pastor, and his name is Steve Cochran. He's a powerful prophecy teacher. You may have seen him on TV or seen him on the internet, Reverend Steve Cochran. And he pointed something out to me. I believe Jesus is going to return. There's no question about it. The book of Revelations tells us he's coming back. He's not coming back as a baby in a manger, though. Jesus is coming back as a conquering warrior to set this world right. But my vision lasted exactly 3.5 hours. I was taken out of my body at 3 a.m. in the morning. You say, well, how do you know that? Because in the bed that I was laying on, there was a digital clock that was right next to the bed. And it was right in the 3 o'clock zone when the Lord removed my spirit from my body. As I lay there, I looked at that clock when the Lord woke me up. And then when I was returned to my body, it was 3.5 hours later. And that was, I believe, at 6:30 in the morning that the Lord returned my spirit to my body. Now, Brother Steve Cochran, who's a powerful prophetic teacher, he said, Pastor Danny Davis, do you understand what that's all about? I said, well, I have no idea why the Lord chose to take my spirit out of my body for 3.5 hours and then put my spirit back in my body after 3.5 hours. He said, you have to understand time in Scripture. The 7-year tribulation period. He said that 3.5 is symbolic. And I said, well, I would never have thought about that. He said, well, I picked it up in the Spirit right away. That 3.5 hour vision, it pertains to the rapture of the church. And that's all I'm going to say about that. You can draw your own conclusions. But I really, really want you to read this book. And you may think everything's all right in your life right now, but I'm going to prophesy something to you right now. 2 things, as a matter of fact, I'm going to prophesy to you. Number one, I'm going to prophesy to you that things are going to get worse and worse in the world, and they're going to wax worse and worse in the United States of America. But there's something I talked about in the book, The Vision, and it's in chapter 4 of my book, The Vision. It's called The Final Wave. And one of the things God showed me during my 3.5 hour vision of the end of time is that there would be a final tsunami wave of God's Spirit that would sweep across America and would sweep throughout the earth, a final wave of revival that was coming to the earth. And there would be a great ingathering of souls in the final wave of revival. I call it a tsunami wave of revival that is coming to the United States of America. God is going to send one last great revival upon the earth, and it's going to be a revival not just of salvation, but of signs and wonders and miracles. The more evil the world becomes, the more demonic it becomes, the more Satan reveals himself, and with his counterfeit signs and wonders, the more you're going to have a people rise up out of a people and a church rise up out of a church, a final wave of revival that's going to sweep the earth. There are going to be many souls that are going to come to Christ right before Jesus returns. I'm excited, even though I'm an old man. I pretty much lived the better part of my life. I'll be 70 this year. But I want to tell you something right now. I'm excited to still be alive in this time in history because there's one last great move of God that's coming upon the earth before Jesus returns. It's going to be a powerful, powerful revival, not just of salvations, but of signs and wonders and miracles. And God is going to show himself strong on behalf of his people. Listen, I want to say it again. The reason I'm talking to you about these things and I wanted to come to you today is not to sell you a book. I'm not selling anything. There's always the cynics and the skeptics out there. They're going to say, oh, that preacher's on TV peddling his, or on social media peddling his book. But I'm not. I want to give this to you free of charge. All you have to do is click on the link you see below or call the toll-free number and give them the pertinent information, and we will send you the book, The Vision, free of charge. It will be my gift to you. I only ask you one thing if I give you the book for free, and that's that you read it. If you believe in the prophetic, you need to read this book because this book came to me by divine supernatural visitation from the Lord when I was a young man, 23 years of age. I had decided to quit preaching. God didn't give me this vision of the end of time because I was doing such a great job. I had decided to give up and quit. I was discouraged. 3.5 hours later, when the Lord put my spirit back in my body, I woke up. The sun was shining through the window of my little apartment, and I just laid there in the bed, and tears began to run down my eyes. I thought, how could I ever even consider preaching the gospel? It's the most important job in the world. To preach the gospel is the most important job, to snatch people out of hell and put their hand in Jesus' hand and help them come to the cross. That's the most important job in the world. I knew 40 some years ago that I would preach every day of my life until I drew my last breath, till the Lord returned. I knew that that's something I had to do. It wasn't just a job. It wasn't just a vocation. It was a calling. So I want to say this one final time. I'm coming to you today to tell you about my vision of the end of time because I want you to have a free copy of my book in digital format. I want you just to read it. I want you to sit down and read it chapter by chapter about the great coming revival of signs, wonders, and miracles. I want you to read about the judgments that are going to come upon our nation because our nation has rejected God. I want you to read about the things that lie ahead, the chaos and shortages, and finally about the destruction of America. America will be destroyed, but I do want to tell you one little thing in closing. In the end of my vision, I saw the battleships from China lined against the United States of America. America was decimated from coast to coast. I have no doubt in my mind one of the things that I saw were nuclear bombs that had gone off in our country. I saw the power grid go down. There was no electricity. I saw great craters in the earth where human beings had once lived, and it seemed like they went on like the Grand Canyon where cities had just been melted to the ground. But in my vision, as I saw those Chinese battleships lined up to destroy, to finish off the United States of America, I thought within my heart, well, all is lost. It's over with. America's gone. But just as I saw that, I saw an angel appear. An angel appeared. He was so big that his hands stretched from the top of America to the bottom of America on the west coast of America. And just before I came out of my vision, that angel put a stop to everything that was getting ready to happen as America was about to be finished off. I saw an angel. I mean, that angel was so big, he blanketed the whole west coast of America, and he put a stop to things. Now, what that means, I can't fully tell you, but it is what I saw. And the fact that I saw these things, many of them were prophetic because they weren't happening at the time that I saw them. People thought maybe I'd lost my mind when I shared them. I want to say this one more time to you. There's nothing being sold here today. I believe in the prophetic. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see vision. I had a vision in July of 1978. It's all in this book, The Vision by Pastor Danny Davis. I want to give it to you free of charge. All you have to do is click on the link you see on the bottom of your screen or call that toll-free number and let them know you want a copy of The Vision. And if you'll do that, I'll get it in your hands and you can read the vision just as I recorded it, the things that God showed me concerning the end of time. It's my gift to you. Just ask for it. The link is right there in the bottom of your screen.